This is my presentation on Batman: A Death in the Family. I want to start my presentation by talking about what my initial thoughts of Jason Todd were. I have to admit, I initially was not a fan. I immediately thought him to be overly temperamental and ungrateful. I feel like he was acting like a moody teenager. Now I know what you might be thinking. He is a moody teenager, right? Well, yes. Technically he is young and still being developed by the world. However, he also has a huge responsibility. Being the Robin is not something you can take lightly. You have a duty to protect and defend in an honorable way. If I was given this responsibility, I believe I would have somewhat of an ability to put my own teenage moods out of the way to protect the greater community. He acted in ways that were reckless and violent. Again, I feel as though he was not taking his responsibility seriously. He acted on his own whims and what he felt was right, which meant acting in a violent and dangerous way. Not only for him, but also everyone else involved. To me, he was unappreciative of all Batman was doing for him, taking him in, training him, giving him a real chance to make a change in the world. He didn't respect Batman's decisions to bench him, even though it was his own actions that had brought that about. However, as the story developed, so did many of my opinions on Jason Todd. When he walked to visit his family's old house, I immediately felt bad for my initial reaction. As I am not a seasoned comic book reader, I did not know that he was an orphan. My reaction of emotion only increased when we discovered that his true mother could still be alive. The joy that he got from knowing that information told me all I needed to know. I realized he was only acting out of loneliness and desperation, just as I would likely have as a teenager. He was groveling with not having those connections, which caused him to act out the only way he could. I greatly respect the immense focus he placed on his family and finding these possible connections. I love my family more than anything, and if I found out I had another sibling or something similar to his situation, I would have been just as adamant about finding them. However, I would not have gone about it in the exact same way he had. I think to some extent he still acted in a way that was spoiled and reckless. In my opinion, his initial reaction should have been to go straight to Batman and ask for his help. Instead, he believed he could handle it himself and almost had tunnel vision on the task at hand. He did not stop for anything and did not think twice before spending Batman's money to get him out of there. When the explosion occurred, I was heartbroken. In a short while, I had gone from believing he was nothing more than a moody teenager to being able to sympathize with him. I held sensitivity for the betrayal he experienced from his own mother. Since I value families so much, I can understand how he allowed his joy and love for finding his mother to overcome him and not see rationally. When it comes to the mother, I myself was even confused. I did not understand all of the events that led up to the explosion. I saw her betrayal, but then what looked like maybe a hint of regret and sadness. If anything, this only made me feel worse for Jason. To a point, however, I was frustrated at his over-emotional tendencies. Even though I would have likely acted in the same way, like I said, I was still upset he acted that way and got himself into this situation. I wish he had recognized the deception or have even been more cautious when reuniting with his mother. Now the real question you are likely wondering is, how did I vote? Well, I think it's pretty obvious I voted to save Robin. I believe he was worthy of living a life, and that all of the factors I explained that allowed me to relate to him, such as being a moody teenager myself, made me resonate with his actions. He simply just wanted a family and to be loved. He saw possibilities of connections and wanted to believe the best in them so he could hopefully achieve a life filled with familial happiness. I think Batman was just as saddened as I was by the loss of Jason Todd. He instantly changed. He started to lean more into isolationism, even refusing to call up Dick Grayson in his moment of sadness and grief. This would be a point where their connection would be more important than anything. However, he so strongly believed that Jason's death was his responsibility that he felt he had no choice but to avenge him. He became inherently more violent, especially towards the Joker. He was willing to take on all measures to destroy the Joker after the hand he played in Jason Todd's death. This need to avenge, as I said, came from his guilt and shame. Batman believed he had failed Jason Todd, not only as a mentor, but also as a father figure. He remembers their old memories and is saddened by what he has lost. It only increases the idea in his mind that emotional attachment only leaves in sadness and hardship. In conclusion, I think Batman, A Death in the Family was a good read. It was the first ever graphic novel I had actually ever read, besides snippets of things here and there. It made me much more interested as I felt it was more than a comic book. It had an emotional depth made through Jason's desire to find family in his untimely death, which was also, in my opinion, the only bad part about the novel. Even with this being said, I would like to read more of the previous works to understand how so many people wanted to kill off Jason Todd. It has probed my interest for Batman and the rest of the DC universe.